Good afternoon. Welcome to the Work Experience Placement Fair at Queen's. It is lovely to have you all with us today. We really appreciate you coming to join us. We are going to look at the Creative Industries Employer Panel at the moment. We have 4 people with us. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and have a quick introduction. So my name is Emma Lennox. I'm one of the careers advisors who works here at Queen's. And I work with the School of Arts, English and Languages and with the Creative Industries. I would like to then introduce Jamie, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie McRoberts. I am lead developer at Retinize, and we are an award-winning immersive media studio based around the corner from Queen's, but working with clients all around the world on VR, AR and interactive installations.
Hi everyone, my name is Tim Bryans. I am the co-founder and managing director of Alt Animation, animation studio based in Belfast.
Hello folks, my name is Sean McCaffrey. I am the COO of Hypixel Studios. We're developing a game called Hightail in Derry, and we've just kind of passed 59 million views on our announcement share. There you go.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Davis and I'm a freelance filmmaker. I graduated from Queen's in 2015 with a degree in film studies, and at the minute I'm trying to progress as a writer and director. So I've directed several fully funded short films, and at the minute I am working as a trainee director and shadow director across a variety of projects.
Brilliant, thank you very much guys. We're going to catch up with you shortly, okay? I'm going to take you through what we should be getting out of this session. Okay, so guys, we'll chat to you in a wee minute. Okay, so this is the plan for the session. We're going to chat to each of the employers or the panelists individually. We want you to, by the end, know how to get started in the creative industries. What these guys, these are leaders and what they're looking for in a recent graduate. How you can be adaptable within the creative labour market. And then we're also going to talk to Rebecca, and we're going to ask her about the career journey of her as a recent Queen's graduate, what she did before and what she's doing now. Okay, so the first person we're going to chat to is Jamie. Is he about? Jamie, there he is.
Sorry about that.
You're fine, Jamie. Thank you very much for joining us today. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and some of the clients that you've worked with? Sure,
yeah. So I actually studied film studies at Queen's University, so I guess I should start there. Yeah, I mean, you know, from the film studies degree, then I went straight in to do a PhD, also at Queen's University, but this time the direction changed slightly. So it moved away from film studies and into the world of immersive and interactive design. And yeah, that was an amazing experience for me. You know, it was part practice, which meant I got to create a little, but it was also obviously part thesis as well, which meant that I was able to kind of research a cutting edge or an emerging technology and feed that into my practice as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend the PhD program. From then, after I graduated with my PhD, I sort of took a bit of time to, you know, do some freelance work. I also lectured at Queen's in the film department as well, and did a bit of youth arts work as well. And then finally, the kind of ideal job came up for me, which is at Retinize, but it was actually in the form of a knowledge transfer partnership, or a KTP. And for those of you that aren't aware, a KTP is basically an Innovate UK program that places a person in a university, but they actually do most of their day-to-day work with a startup or an SME, a small medium enterprise. And the idea is that they kind of transfer their research into the business to try and improve the prospects of the business. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking out the KTP programs on the Innovate UK website as well, because there's literally hundreds of jobs there across the UK every year, you know, with a good salary, with good training opportunities, and you get to work on some really exciting stuff as well. So that takes me up to kind of now. I'm lead developer at Retinize. When I joined the company, they had built quite a strong reputation developing high quality 3D 360 virtual reality, what we would call cinematic virtual reality, so a sort of filmed virtual reality. And they had been working with clients like Save the Children, for example. You know, so the kind of work that they did was they would go out to, for example, Nigeria, and film the experiences of some of the Nigerian people and some of the sort of hardships that they were facing. And that project actually ended up being a focal point of Save the Children's fundraising campaign, which raised over £350,000. And the film subsequently won a Golden Dolphin at Cannes as well. But when I joined, my remit was really to try and develop the interactive virtual reality side of the business and the augmented reality side of the business. So I developed a few workflows, and we started to work with some other clients, for example, Eurostar. We created the world's first sort of in-train virtual reality experience, which was mainly aimed at kids, but the idea was that they could put on the virtual reality headset and experience a kind of imaginary underwater world as they were traveling under the Eurotunnel. So that was pretty neat. And then another example would be like we created a project with Seagate, which shrinks the user down to a nanoscopic level and allows them to sort of explore the inner workings of a Seagate hard drive. And that's been used for their STEM outreach across the world, and was, central to their CES 2018 stand as well. And yeah, now, I mean, my day-to-day work is mainly in research and development. Within Retinize, we're trying to develop a revolutionary animation software project or product, which we're actually hoping to roll out to Queen's as one of the first early adopters this coming academic year. So yeah, I mean, my job's mainly kind of engaging creative work, but also, really head-hurting technical work as well. But as I say, like every day's a school day, so we just keep learning and keep kind of trying new things and keep innovating. But yeah, I guess that kind of takes me up to now. I guess from the time that I started working in the industry over here to where we are at now, I'm seeing a lot more jobs within the creative industries. And I'm seeing a lot of like interesting stuff going on with NI Screen, but also with Queen's University and Ulster University, for example, the Future Screens initiative as well. So I think it's a really positive time to be graduating within a creative discipline, and especially in Northern Ireland as well.
You did mention there very briefly, but you actually have a PhD in immersive and interactive storytelling. Now, how on earth did you convert that to the job market? Where did you go from there?
I mean, the PhD was an amazing opportunity. I think at the stage that I graduated, I wasn't quite sure what the next step was. And this PhD came with a stipend, which is basically like a kind of a small salary, but something that allows the student to kind of focus on their work. So it was great for me because it was the first time in my life I'd actually kind of been paid to do what I wanted to do. So that was great. I think like in terms of converting the PhD into, expanding career prospects and so on, I think first of all, like from a kind of superficial level, being able to go into, job applications or into interviews and say that you're, a kind of certified expert in a particular subject, it does carry a lot of weight. But aside from that, I think that there were a lot of skills that were gained that kind of strengthened me and strengthened, how I could go into a job interview and kind of convince somebody to hire me. But I think that these are general things. They aren't sort of specific necessarily to the PhD, that they kind of cut across master's degrees, even undergraduate degrees as well. I think that there's plenty of things there that can carry across. So I think the first thing that it taught me obviously was how to research. But I think that's important, and that has currency in this kind of modern work ecosystem that we have, because a lot of companies are interested in innovation, they're interested in research and development. So if you can demonstrate research skills, I think that can be very attractive to the potential employer. So yeah, even if it's an undergraduate thesis, think about what are the emerging areas, what is the cutting edge, like, and is there an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone, where you can get a really good mark in your assignment, but you've also got a body of work that you can actually bring through into kickstarting your career. I think the other thing that it taught me was communication, both written and verbal. And I think that that's important. It kind of forced me to conquer a fear of public speaking. But all that was just, you know, kind of, if there was an opportunity to speak publicly, I think you should just grab it. And even if you're a shy person, you know, you can absolutely do it. But probably the most important thing that the PhD taught me was how to like present information, how to package information, and thinking about how you're speaking, but thinking about how you're presenting, for example, written documents or your portfolio or your CV. You know, think about layout, think about, you know, obviously the relevant information to include, but also can you exclude stuff that isn't really relevant to this job? Because I think what you want to do is you want to give yourself the best opportunity to kind of have impact, you know, to present what you have to say in the best way possible. And I think that really goes a long way, kind of now sitting at the other side as an employer and as somebody that looks at a lot of CVs, you know, a lot of job applications, you can really see a real difference between the people that have kind of, you know, thought about how they're conveying their self and their work and their skills. And that's, to me, is really attractive whenever I see an application like that.
So it's being selective and not including everything since primary school, including your 50-meter swimming badge, yeah. Your Tufty crossing the road badge. Don't include that sort of stuff, no?
Well, I mean, unless that's relevant to the job.
That's directly relevant. Yeah. You've worked in a variety of different industries, so you've worked in different roles. Do you think it's better to specialise in one particular area, or do you think it's better to keep your interest broad whenever you're starting out in your career?
I mean, I guess the short answer is both. But
brilliant.
I mean, to be a bit more specific, I would say that, you know, the creative industries in Northern Ireland are comprised predominantly of SMEs and kind of startups and a lot of freelance as well. And in that context, I think that being a multi-skiller, as we would call it, is important. You know, if someone can I guess hire you to do X, but you can also do a little bit of Y, then that's great. That makes you a little bit more valuable. That being said, though, I think that you need to consider what is your ideal role. You know, do a little bit of kind of 5-year plan. You know, 5-year career goal. Like what would you like to be? Would you like to be a video editor or a costume designer or a game developer or whatever it is, and whatever that thing is that really excites you and that you think there are opportunities here, you know, to get employment in that area, then you should absolutely focus on, you know, gaining specific skills in that area. You want to make sure that going into a job interview, you have better skills than the next person, and that you also have a more fascinating, compelling show reel or portfolio to support that. But yeah, so I think first thing is, you know, hone your craft and get really good at what you want to be, but also spend a little bit of time around the edges of that, researching and upskilling yourself in related areas. Like, to use an example, if being a video editor is your thing, you know, also look into color grading, look into VFX, look into you know, a little bit of sound editing, and you don't need to be an expert in all of those things, but if you can go into an interview and talk a little bit about it, I think that it demonstrates a foundation that can be built on, but it also allows you to communicate with different people that will be involved in a project or production, and I think that that's super important. You know, certain roles come with their own language, their own terms, their own processes, and if you're a complete outsider, that can be quite intimidating. But if you have a little bit of knowledge, then it means that you can collaborate with those people on a much more kind of precise level. So I'd say, like, I guess to summarize, I'd say, you know, spend 75% of your time specializing in the job and the career that you want, but maybe spend 25% of your time, you know, reading around, researching around, having a play, you know, doing a couple of hobby projects in some related areas as well. That's
a really nice way to put it, actually, the way to split your time. I quite like that. I'm going to see it in the future, just letting you know. Jimmy, thank you very much. We'll grab you back at the end again, if you don't mind. But thank you for your insight.
No problem at all. Lovely talking to you.
Lovely talking to you too. The next person we're going to chat to is Tim. If Tim is about at the moment. Tim, do you want to come and introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah. First of all, I could say, unfortunately, I'm experiencing a few technical difficulties, so my video might I dropped out quite a few times during there, so apologies in advance. So a lesson about the creative industries is that technology will often let you down at the times you need it most. And just to say, that was a great talk by Jamie there. I think that's going to be a hard act to follow. I think that was really eloquently put, a lot of great points. But yeah, my background, I'm actually a graduate of Queen's. I actually studied geography, believe it or not. Classic case of somebody who had very poor careers advice and was a little bit rudderless when they left university. But I had a lifelong passion in animation, and I always that was really the career trajectory I wanted. It just took me a little bit longer to find it. So essentially I went to Edinburgh and studied a master's in multimedia and kind of came into animation in a very convoluted way. And essentially back then there wasn't an animation industry to speak of in Northern Ireland. I travelled I lived in Canada for a year and got some experience in the industry over there, but not very much because I was very inexperienced. But I came back to Northern Ireland and there was one animation company called Banjax at the time. And I was fortunate enough to get a position at Banjax, which I kind of it was through sheer determination and not taking no for an answer, which isn't always the right way to go, but just that's kind of my experience. I'll try and caveat that a bit as I go. But yeah, I got my break with a company called Banjax. I worked my way up. I quickly realized I wasn't a good enough animator to compete with the real animators. So I kind of took a sidestep into production management and into ultimately producing. And so at Banjax, we produced a 52-part series called Lifeboat Luke, which was the first ever animated series to be produced and financed entirely on the island of Ireland, and actually worked with Kevin Beamers, who I believe is coming up in the talks next. We worked with him on that project, going back quickly nearly about 15 years now. And from there, I really worked in animation and in games design for a number of companies. I was head of production at a company called Flickerpix, based in Hollywood, Northern Ireland. And I was also head of production at 16 South. So I've worked for broadcasters all around the world. I've produced series such as, work with talent such as Billy Connolly and Stephen Fry, and worked for broadcasters such as CBBC in the UK, PBS Kids in the US, Nick Jr. at Disney Channel. And so ultimately what happened about 5 years ago, I decided to take all of that experience, and with a couple of colleagues, we set up Alt Animation as a company that would essentially try and do things a little bit differently and try and create a company that was, ALT are the initials of the co-founders, Andrea, Lee and Tim. But we also wanted to be a little bit of an alternative in that we wanted to make a company that was fun to work with, fun to work for. And we've been very successful so far. We've been developing projects. We're currently co-developing projects with companies in countries such as Canada, Japan, Norway, Finland, and really we're trying to take our projects, develop them here in Northern Ireland and take them around the world. So that's really where we've got to. I say I'm here to sort of talk about leadership, but leadership's very much something I've fallen into. It's not something I would say that I would ever say at school. If there was somebody going to be voted least likely to be a leader, it would probably have been me. I was painfully shy. I was just, public speaking, as Jamie mentioned, was just my worst nightmare. But it's something that it's a role that I've kind of grown into. You see, now I'm the managing director of of my own company. I regularly travel to conferences and have to give speeches, pitch projects to people, and really, put the microscope firmly on myself a lot of the time. And it's not always easy. I'm not going to say that, but it's very much a part of the job that I've had to get used to.
Because I know you've worked in very senior and you've worked in leadership roles as well, and that is something that our students they'll want to start career, but a lot of them will aspire to getting into those big decision-making roles. I know you've done all aspects of production as well, so technicalities as well as the creative side. What do you think you really need to be a leader, particularly in the creative sector?
I say I can only speak from my experience.
Perfect.
And as I say that I'm someone that really would have resisted, that leadership, that idea of leadership. But it's kind of something that's evolved by nature of coming into the industry at the ground floor. I was on the bottom rung of the ladder, and I've kind of worked my way up. So I think what's really beneficial about that is that I've learned what everyone in the production process does, and I've got a real understanding of what is required. And I'll try not to be too corny, but so reading up on leadership and things, and my style of leadership is very much, it's never asking somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, and I'm able to do that. I'm able to put myself in that position more effectively because I've kind of done everything else. I've not necessarily done it very well, but I'm always aware of what's required to get a job done and what's required of people. And again, we're really corny now, but a quote from that I use a lot as well is that leadership it's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of the people who are in your charge. And that's kind of something that we've always, I've sort of, and the people we work with, we always try and do, is that we want to, create an environment and a company that is fun to work for. First and foremost, we work in kids television. Our job is to make children laugh and to make content that engages with children. It should be fun. And I think I worked for too long in roles and under leaders that really were pretty unpleasant to work for, and created there can be some toxic environments where there's really a drive on, you have to get this done in a certain time, and if you don't get it done within these hours, then that's you're not working hard enough, or you're not good enough. I think that's not the case. It's that especially at the minute, we're working in an environment where the world is changing dramatically. We're finding out now that we don't necessarily need an office. We don't necessarily need people to be working within these timeframes. We've got people working for us now that have children, that have got complicated lives, and we're just trying to be adaptive as leaders to say, well, we're willing to work with you around these problems, to find solutions that can help, because ultimately, as long as the work gets done, I don't really care when it gets done. And I think that's a bit of a shift in mindset for a lot of people, and that the sort of an Edwardian approach to industry, in that people must be there and they must be doing it so I can see that they're doing it. And if I don't see sweat on their brow, they're not working hard enough. But that's not necessarily the case. And I think sort of just one thing that the creative industry is really in need of are leaders, because I mean, it's very much a stereotype, but the creative people are always kind of, very focused on being creative and not necessarily being organized or worried about budgets and schedules and things. And I think where I come in, and where we need leaders, is that we need people to come in and kind of corral that creative energy, because I would never try and, stymie or pare down the creative energy of a project, but ultimately this is a client-driven industry, where we're working for an ad agency or we're working for a broadcaster. They're paying you to make something, and they want what they want. And with the best will in the world, if you think, well, it would be better if this dog had, brown spots, and the broadcaster says, you know what, no, the dog's going to have black spots.
It's not your call to make. It's
not your call, and it's not. Is that the hill you really want to die on? Is the phrase I use a lot. It's like, there's a skill to be able to manage the creative process and say, okay, we can argue over this for 3 hours, lose 3 hours of productivity. We're now 3 hours behind. That 3 hours cost us X number of pounds, which now doesn't go on the screen. So it's all about managing a creative process and trying to put our job is to get as much money on the screen as possible, first and foremost. So we need producers, we need production managers, people that can corral the creative process. And there's very, very few creatives that have complete luxury to create whatever art they want with no parameters set around them. We'll be given a budget to make a 52-part series, and the broadcaster will want it delivered on a certain date because it's going in their schedule. It's being aired. They have an air date that's 18 months in advance, and so we have to get there. And so really, it's really important that we, plan. We have to plan to the nth degree in terms of, well, if we don't get this script done by this date, then we're not going to have that animatic done. We're not going to get that voice artist who's going to have nothing to record. So we really need people that have got great organizational skills, great people skills, because it is a people-driven industry as well. Because, as I've mentioned before, we're only as good as the people that work for us. And if those people aren't happy, and they're not going to be producing good work, and it's going to show on the screen a lot of the time. So, I think that's something that working in animation, people always maybe wrongly assume that you have to be able to draw, or you have to be able to, use really expensive software and things. If you want to be an animator, yes, but the amount of people that go into making an animated series, we'll have 60, 70 people working on an animated series. We'll have, producers, production managers, production coordinators. We'll have directors, we'll have animators, we'll have designers, we'll have voice artists, we'll have technical directors, we'll have editors. So really, there's a huge number of moving parts in any project. And, sitting at the top of that, the producer has to organize those and has to get people working to the best of their abilities and being happy, because ultimately that's what, let's say at the end of the day, we're trying to make children laugh. And if we're doing something that, if people are unhappy in their job, it kind of does come across on the screen. I know it sounds, it mightn't sound like it would come across on the screen because you're
but you can pick up on it.
I think you can. Because say I've been in the position where I have been on projects which haven't had necessarily inspirational leaders, and I think there's a real opportunity for people to come into the creative industries and use their creative skills to help make the creative industries stronger.
Okay, that kind of leads into my next question. Actually, some of it you've already answered. You talked about people skills, and you talked about organization. What does you as a leader, and hence a recruiter, then look for someone who's just starting out their journey in the career sector? What skills are you expecting our graduates to have?
Again, I'm going to be quite corny about this, but passion is a really good one. In terms of just when people contact me, I really do look, as much as I look for their qualifications and skills that they have, I also look for passion, and that they've looked at who we are and what we do as a company, and they've seen that there's an opportunity for them to help us. I can see that they've gone away and tried to craft a way towards that. A lot of the time I'll get an email that says, hey, I'd really want to work in animation, can I have a job? And it's well, what you need to do is be very focused in what you want to do in the industry, and go after it, and show me that you want to go after it. Show me your passion. And a lot of the time the portfolio is a really important tool for whatever. We'll get a lot of applications that come through, but if I can see somebody that has spent time caring about almost like the presentation of what they're putting forward, putting themselves forward, whatever you send to me is an extension of yourself. If it's a 2-line email that tells me nothing about you, your skills or experience, then that kind of tells me you don't care enough that this is something you really want to do. If I get an email that's got a CV, it's got a link to your portfolio, it's got details of work experience you've done or courses that you've been on, I get a really good sense of who you are, are you going to be somebody that I'm going to want to work with, and work really hard with? Because there's easier ways to make money. I'm just going to put that out there. There's easier ways to make money than working in the animation industry. It's hard, but it's really rewarding. And most people that are in the industry are there because they love it, and they love making content that brings laughter and fun to audiences. So that has to come across. I have to see that in whatever you put forward. Is sort of in a nutshell what I kind of do, because I do get a lot of applications, and it's very easy to just get a 2-line email and and dismiss it, because I'll always respond. That's sort of because I've been in the bottom rung. I will always respond to anyone that gets me because they've taken the time to get in touch. But if you are taking the time, really take the time and show me and show the company you're applying to where you'll fit and how that you've worked towards being a good fit for them. And I think that should stand you in good stead.
Tim, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you for the leadership aspect of it as well. We're going to join you again at the end, just briefly, if you don't mind staying around for a couple of minutes.
No problem.
We'll chat to you again at the end. Tim, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time. The next person we have is Sean. Sean, I am going to get you to introduce yourself, and I'm going to leave it over to you because you have your own slides. Are you happy?
No problem, Emma. Thank you very much. Great.
Thanks, Sean.
Fantastic. Hello, my name is Sean McCaffrey. I am the CEO of Hypixel Studios. I'll just get into a wee bit of my history here. I've been mucking about with games for about 20 years, and it started about 20 years ago in the Magnet Bar, of all places, between myself and two other individuals. We had an idea. We wanted to make games. We played games. We loved all that kind of the scene, although there was very little of it in Ireland at the time. We formed a company called Torque Interactive. We got some traction on that. We were doing demos for the likes of Havoc, who are a physics middleware company in Dublin, and they're still going strength to strength. They're working with EA and all manner of people right now. We helped those guys with their demos before we actually started developing our own engine tech, because we want to kind of move into that space. And we were quite successful. We were working with NVIDIA, Havoc again, Intel and AMD. We actually did the first 64-bit demo called Dreadnought with AMD. But moving on, we kind of split that group into two. So we took the content guys and a few of the designers, and we formed a company in Derry called Darkwater Studios. And we actually released a game called Dogfighter. Now, I'll not get too deeply into it because I know we're kind of pushed for time. But that game came about for all the wrong reasons. We had this thing called a publishing agent who gave them estates with a weighty tome of a game design and said, hey guys, if you can make this, we will get you some money. And our board, unfortunately, was made up of businessmen and people who weren't really kind of had their pulse in the industry. Yeah, they saw the dollar signs. We went ahead. It tanked, which was terrible. Unfortunately, our company broke up, and a few of us went off and formed a casual games company called Black Market Games. And we had one release, which again tanked, unfortunately, but all these are fantastic lessons to learn. I took a bit of a break from the industry for a year or two then. But along the way, I had met a young man called Aaron Donaghy. He decided to stay in the industry, and he ended up working with a bunch of guys called Hypixel Inc., who are based out of Quebec in Canada. Now, what they did was they created was effectively Disneyland in Minecraft. So you connected with your Minecraft client, you typed in an IP address, and you went into this, which is essentially a theme park. And there were lots of mini games you can engage with. Unfortunately, Aaron was able to convince me to come back into the industry again, much to my wife's annoyance. And we started kind of working together on all these crazy little fun experiences. But Microsoft had just acquired Mojang, the creators of Minecraft, and they started enforcing the end user licensing agreement, which changed our world incredibly. It determined how we could make money. We saw revenue drop about 85% at that stage, and we kind of realized to ourselves, right, we're making sandcastles in somebody else's sandpit here. We have no control over our own future. So we decided to take the money we're making and develop our own game called Hytale. We announced the game in 2018, December 2018, just while we were in negotiations with Riot Games, who later acquired us. And I think I said at the start of the video, we have 59 million views. That's a shocking lie. We have about 58 million views on the trailer. Riot has since acquired us fully. We have an office in Derry, and we have about 68 employees. We got our 68th on Monday. And we are going from strength to strength. We're moving into full production now, and we're going to be looking for lots and lots and lots of people. So adaptability and focus shifting. And the question is put to me, how important is it to keep learning once you finish normal education? When looking at people who are joining us, we kind of value people on 3 pillars. Their craft skill, basically how effective they are at the job that they're being hired to do. Their work ethic, how hard they're going to work for us, how self-driven they are, which is vitally important, and then their culture, right? And these things are weighted kind of on a par with each other, right? The culture one's important. Over the past 5 years of the development of Hightail, we have lost 5 people, which is nothing. Our staff turnaround is absolutely it's not negligible at this stage. But what sets people apart when you're coming out of college, which I think is a great foundation, right, for moving into employment, the thing that always, I say always, it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. The thing that always sets people apart is the passion. We've heard a chat about how important passion is. It so is. If you are engaged in whatever sort of creative kind of outlet that you're getting into, and your maybe your degree is based around it, the fact of the matter is, doing a degree or doing your education is a foundation, but it's not all, right? If you're engaging with take game development, if you're a modder, if you're somebody who's actively engaged with the community, you're going to stand out with somebody who's just done a degree. Okay, it's vitally important that you can engage with your focus area as much as you can and talk to as many people as you can and have that passion worn on your sleeve. It's going to teach you an awful lot that unfortunately you won't be able to squeeze into the remit of the course. As well as that, there you got to think about. There's been talk about how broad you should be as well. If you're not entirely sure exactly where you want to go, and let's say this games, being a programmer isn't just being a programmer. There are programmers who do AI, programmers who do server networking, they do services and platform, they do physics, they do all these different things. If you can get yourself as much kind of grounding as many of those topics as you can, if you're not too sure which one to take, fantastic. The fact of the matter is that as you do that and as you engage with communities, you're going to fall in with other people who are doing the same thing, and you learn from each other. I'm not taking it away from college education by any stretch of imagination, because I said it is a solid foundation. But I've never met a programmer that didn't say that they learned more in the first 6 months on the job than they did in the entirety of the university. Now, that sounds quite damning. It's not meant to be. The fact of the matter is when you go into a job, you will have a much, much tighter focus. Your university time will give you a broad base of the skill sets you're going to need, right, to kind of move on and get on with your career. But when you get into a job, that scope kind of becomes a lot more focused. Yes, education is preparation, right? But you should look at your subject matter and drill into it as much as you can with as many people as you can, right? It's something that we look for, and something that time and time again proves that, if you have the passion, you can show to have been doing stuff in that space outside of your education, you have a much, much better chance of being employed. Right, so the skills acquired by us in the next few years. These are not the only things that we need to make a game. Publishing, art, tech, design, operations, production, and audio. These are all areas and we're actively hiring. Well, publishing will come in a few months' time. Operations probably in a few months' time as well. What's not listed here is also QA, quality assurance, which we are actively hiring for, and the positions are in dairy. Our company is a little bit unique, right? We have a basis of operations in Derry, in Patrick Street, in the old city factory. Beautiful building that we can't go near, unfortunately. But yeah, COVID's been a blast. But the fact of the matter is Hypixel is, for the vast majority of people, a remote company. We have people from as far east as New Zealand all the way around to the west coast of America, right? The pandemic has affected us like it has affected everybody in terms of not being able to go outside. But as far as our productivity is concerned, it's been a marginal impact at best, because we are completely used to working remotely. That's how I started in this company, and it fits like a glove for the vast majority of people, even our QA. So as we're moving forward, we will be, as I said, we are actively hiring, and anybody who's going to end up in the area of us will start on a remote basis. The ones we're looking at most closely at the moment are operations, in terms of, I think we're looking for a system administrator. Whoa, buzzing. A little bit of production and QA. I think are the roles that we're looking at mostly now at the minute. Yeah. Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you, Emma.
Sorry.
Hey!
Yeah, it's working. Oh, I did get you a little bit upset about not being able to get into the building at the moment.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time. Are you okay to stick around for a couple of minutes? We can grab you at the
absolutely.
end.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for that.
No
Our last panelist is Rebecca, who's waiting very patiently. Rebecca, hi.
Hiya.
Lovely to see you today. Rebecca, I'm going to hand over to you and I'm going to let you share your own slides at the moment, okay?
No worries, no worries.
Thanks very much.
So yeah, my name's Rebecca Davis, and as I said earlier, I'm a freelance filmmaker. And I suppose it took me a while to sort of give myself like a title. I don't work for a company. Since graduating in 2015, I've had a variety of different roles, and my aim has always been to be a writer and director. It's one of my long-term goals to direct a feature film. And I'm here today to talk about inspiring action. And I suppose it's good to bear in mind that I'm talking about this from a writing and directing point of view. But I do think a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are applicable to other creative industries. So that might include drama, theatre, acting, gaming, you know, writing, poetry, literature, anything. So yeah, hopefully you get some good stuff from all this. The first thing I talk about is to keep updated, and it took me a while since graduating to kind of realize how many companies there are in Northern Ireland that are wanting to help young creatives get into the industry. And for me personally, the biggest one has been Northern Ireland Screen. They have funded several short films of mine, and you know, it's great that they give money to filmmakers to make short films to sort of see what they can do. But the biggest thing that I have gotten from them is support. And I have a lot of friends in the industry, fellow graduates, that would say the same thing, that Northern Ireland Screen is a great company to keep in touch with. And it is as easy as just going onto their website. So they are brilliant at keeping their website up to date with crew calls, with funding schemes, with short film schemes, with like placements and opportunities. So one thing I would say to people that have just recently graduated is just go on to Northern Ireland Screen's website, make that part of your weekly routine. I would say I go on Northern Ireland Screen's website about 4 or 5 times a week, because they are constantly updating their website. And even if you follow them on Twitter or Facebook or even Instagram, they put all of that same stuff I just talked about on all their social media pages. So whether you want to make a short film, or you want to progress in the camera department or the makeup department, they have schemes that support trainees in the industry. So they've been good for me, because they have helped me secure several director trainee programs. So this is something that I think is relatively new, that they have this like rolling director shadowing scheme. I think at the minute you have to have 2 funded short films to be eligible for the scheme. So yeah, it's a good place to get your first film funded. So keep up to date with Northern Ireland Screen, and same thing applies to screen skills and things like the BAFTA newsletter. Because of COVID, I actually got sort of signed up for their newsletters, and as a consequence, I learned about all these Zoom Q&As that they were hosting. I attended as many as I could, but if you just sign up for their newsletters, you will get emails to your inbox, and they'll tell you about things that are happening, opportunities that are happening, network opportunities. And another thing I would suggest is to watch films that are made here. I think it's important to keep up to date with local films that are made by local filmmakers. It's good to know who's making these films because you might meet them someday. And I've known people that have met filmmakers, have said, oh, I saw that film that you made, and then they've gotten a job because they were able to say, oh, I loved that film, I thought it was great, etc., etc. And it's good to see how films can be made in Northern Ireland. And what's great about these Northern Ireland Screen Skills, etc., is that they will talk about films that are that have been made here and where they're screening. And I just think it's important. Apply to everything. I think you should apply for everything, even if you don't think your idea is really strong or not fully developed or formed. Apply for everything because it will give you experience applying to things. It will give you experience with the application forms. It will help you articulate an idea. It'll help you try and get an idea across. You know, if it's a visual idea, you're trying to get it into written form to try and excite the panelists. So even if you don't think your idea is absolutely fantastic or you don't think it's good enough, still apply for it. I've applied for all these things listed and I've only got into 2 of them. But I felt like I learned so much about myself and what I wanted to make from applying to the things that I didn't get into as well. These things, again, will always be advertised on Northern Ireland Screen's website. They will always tell you when these schemes are opening. The BBC 2 Minute Masterpiece is the one that I would suggest to filmmakers that have just left Queen's that want to get their first funded film. So they give you a small amount of money to make a 2-minute film, but it's really good because it's your first time experiencing a little bit of funding to make something. So yeah, apply to everything. And as well as that, attend events. And I worked for the Belfast Film Festival and for Docs Ireland for several years. And it meant that I was constantly surrounded by filmmakers, producers, industry experts. And because I'm absorbing information and listening to people talk and watching films that are not just from the UK and Ireland, but from across the water, you learn so much about filmmaking. It's a universal thing. You know, everyone wants to make films for the same sort of reason, to entertain, to educate, to inspire. I do suggest that you attend events, you put yourself out there, you go to networking events after these film festivals, because I feel like any Q&A I go to, I learn something from it. I'm still young, you know, I still inexperienced to a certain extent. I don't think there's going to be a point where I'm ever going to stop learning about filmmaking, and it's something that I'm really interested in. And I find that attending these events, you just absorb so much creative energy, and you get speaking to people, you get networking, and you get to see these local films that I'm talking about and meet the filmmakers, and it's just a really, really good hub to get into. This is something that I'm not very good at myself, but it's something that I read in this book. It's called A Little Black Book. It's a toolkit for working women, but I would suggest that anyone who's in the creative industries get it. My boyfriend got it. It's not just for women, but basically one of the chapters is on how to promote yourself. And this book suggests things like having the same profile picture across all of your social media pages so that people know that it's you when they go onto Twitter, Instagram to search for you. I recently made what I'm calling like a professional Instagram. You know, I'm a filmmaker, so I make visual material and content. So I use my professional Instagram to take some screenshots of things that I've made and then put them online. And, you know, it looks good. And I know people that have gotten work from their Instagram. People have seen something they've posted about and thought, I really like what this guy or girl's done. And then they get in touch. And I know so many people that have gotten a job through Instagram. So I think it's important I try and treat Instagram now like it's a job. I'm not a big fan of posting things, and I'm not really into social media that much, but I'm trying to use it as a tool to promote my work, to get myself more work, to let people know what I'm doing. And I sort of try and post, maybe once a month, something like that. If I've created something recently, I try and post about it. Another thing I'd suggest is if you feel like you've got enough sort of material, get a website. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the world that would want to help you out. And your CV as well. Get your CV updated every time you've got a new credit. And lastly, develop your skills. So read. From doing loads of Zoom workshops, Directing Actors by Judith Wetson was recommended to me at least 10 times. Read this book, research things that are interesting to you, and get yourself some material that you can read, that you can absorb. Practice your craft, do things that are going to help you develop what you want to do. I want to be a writer-director, but I also love cinematography, and I want to be a self-shooting director at some point. So I tried to get myself a variety of camera trainee credits. And I would also say, listen. So try not to talk about yourself so much when you're meeting people. Listen to them, see what they have to say, and engage in people, absorb information that they have to say, because you're the one trying to get a job or a experience here. So listen to other people, see what they have to say, and then that relationship can hopefully develop. I think that's me done.
Rebecca, that was brilliant. I wasn't expecting to leave with a reading list. We can head into the library after this. Can I possibly ask all the panelists to come back just for a quick moment just at the end? Guys, thank you so much. I'm thinking I'm going to have to go away and take notes on some of this. I just want to ask you quickly, just as we finish up, in one sentence, what advice would you give to a Queen's student who wants to work in the creative industries here? What would you just say? This is what I would really advise you to do. Jamie, do you want to go for it first?
Yeah, I think all the panelists kind of covered this slightly, but I think it's really important to get yourself out there. Like, the job isn't going to fall from the sky. I think whenever I graduated, I felt intimidated in talking to people, and even, talking to lecturers, talking to people in an NI screen, talking to potential employers. But when you strip it all back, they're all people just like you. So don't be intimidated, and just go in there and say what you have to say, and see if you can strike up a relationship and leave with the job.
Brilliant, Jamie. Thank you. Tim, what would you add?
Yeah, share that sentiment exactly. Almost word for word is get yourself out there. If there's a job out there that you want, I'm a perfect example of it. I wanted to get into animation. I had zero experience, and I just went out and through a lot of the things that all the panelists have said, especially Rebecca, promote yourself. Absorb everything you possibly can about the industry. Northern Ireland Screen is a fantastic resource, and we wouldn't be in business without them. So get onto that website. They're really here to help people get into the industry. So, but promote yourself. Whenever you're approaching the companies, put forward the best version of yourself in terms of researching what they are, what you want to do, so that it's easy for them to see where you'll fit within the organisation.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sean?
Yes, it's much the same again. Use your education as a basis for your employability, but you need to get involved with communities. You need to put your name out there. I have to say again, having worked with NI Screen on a number of occasions as well, they're a great resource, not just for people who are in the middle of doing something, but people who are looking to do something as well. So yeah, that again, top marks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sean. Rebecca?
I think much the same, but I think a way in which you can try and make yourself stand out a little bit is that if you have emailed an individual or a company to tell them about yourself or to try and find an opportunity, give them a call after. I find that this has helped me quite a lot. It's very easy to send an email, but I think it's so much better if you can send an email and then pick the phone up after, just to ring that person and say, I've sent you an email. Look, I'm really interested in a bit about yourself, because I think it's a lot more personal. It's a lot more it's different. You know, I think people are used to getting lots of emails through, but if you get a phone call from someone and you can attach a voice to that email, I think that's a lot more powerful than just sending out emails. It's easy to do that, but I think seek a little bit of discomfort, do something that scares you a little bit or frightens you a little bit. And it's such an easy thing to do, is pick up the phone. But I guarantee as soon as you start speaking to that person, you'll be glad that you did that. Like, pick up the phone after you send an email. That's my advice.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we could do a whole session on seek discomfort as well.
100%.
Guys, thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate your time today. I'm going to just close off the session. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And I'll chat to you all again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Just want to really thank you, our panel, for being here today. They're extremely busy people, so we do appreciate their time. Do stay with us at the Work Experience and Placement Fair. There is another speaker coming up. So Kevin is based out in Hollywood, and he's going to chat about leadership and about innovation and about changing and adapting. What I will say as well is NI Screen are also at the Work Experience and Placement Fair today, so do pop over to their stall and have a nosy at them as well. And it was very lovely to speak with you all today. So thank you very much for joining us.